I noticed the signs the way you notice a slow leak in the roof. Not all at once. Just one drop at a time. A missed dinner here. A vague excuse there. The way he started sleeping on the far edge of the bed, like he was trying to disappear into the wall. I told myself it was stress. I told myself every marriage goes through phases. I told myself a lot of things in those months. But none of those things prepared me for the Tuesday evening I came home to find my husband walking up our front porch steps, with a woman I had never seen before in my life, holding his hand. What Marcus didn't know, what he couldn't have anticipated in a million years, was that the house he was casually showing off to his girlfriend had my name on every single document. Every single one. And by the time that night was over, the life he thought he was building behind my back was going to come crashing down around him. Before we get into it, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. Drop a comment letting me know where in the world you're watching from. And let's get into this story. My name is Vivienne Monroe. I'm 37 years old, and I live in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is where this entire story took place. I'm a licensed property attorney. I've spent over a decade helping clients protect their assets, navigate real estate law, and make sure their names are on the things that matter. There is a certain irony in that, given what happened in my own marriage. But we'll get to that. My husband, my ex-husband, Marcus, worked as a regional sales manager for a medical supply company. He traveled a lot. He made good money. He was tall, well-dressed, and had one of those personalities that fills up a room the second he walks in. Funny, charming, the kind of man who remembers everyone's name and makes you feel like the most important person in the conversation. I was 28 when we met at a charity gala downtown. He was 31. He asked me to dance twice and called me the next morning. That was 9 years ago. For a long time, we were genuinely happy. Long drives to the mountains on weekends. Cooking elaborate meals on Sunday afternoons just because we had the time. Building inside jokes that only made sense to the two of us. Planning a future together with the kind of easy confidence that comes when you think you've found the right person. 3 years into our marriage, we started looking for a house. Now here's where you need to understand something about me. Long before I met Marcus, I had been quietly and very deliberately building financial independence. I had investment accounts. I had savings. I had excellent credit. I had purchased a small rental property at 26, before I even passed the bar exam. When Marcus and I started house hunting, we looked at properties together. We went to open houses together. We debated neighborhoods together. He assumed, naturally, that we would purchase whatever we chose jointly. But Marcus had some credit issues from a failed business venture years earlier. Nothing dramatic, but enough to complicate a joint mortgage application and potentially cost us a higher interest rate. So we made a practical decision. Or rather, I made a practical decision. I purchased the house in my name only. Marcus signed nothing. His name appeared nowhere on the deed, nowhere on the mortgage, nowhere in any of the property records. He knew this at the time. We discussed it plainly. He was grateful, actually, that I could handle it cleanly without dragging his old credit history into it. He just forgot about it over the years. Or maybe he assumed things had changed. They hadn't. About 5 years into our marriage, Marcus became a stranger. It didn't happen overnight. That's never how it works. It was gradual, the way seasons change. You don't notice summer becoming fall until suddenly the air is cold, and the leaves are already on the ground. He started traveling more for work. Fine. His job had always required travel, but the trips got longer. The check-in calls got shorter. When he was home, he was distracted. Phone always face down, always finding a reason to step outside to take a call, always half present even when he was sitting right next to me. I asked him once if something was wrong. He said he was under pressure at work. I asked him a second time a few weeks later. He said I was being paranoid. That word, paranoid, has a way of making you doubt yourself even when your instincts are screaming at you. I started second-guessing what I was seeing. I started making excuses for him in my own mind. I kept telling myself I was projecting, overthinking, being too sensitive. And then I found the receipt. It fell out of the pocket of his jacket when I was organizing the closet. A dinner receipt from a restaurant downtown. A nice one, the kind with low lighting and a wine list. Dated on a Thursday night when Marcus had told me he was in Raleigh for a client meeting. 2 entrees. 1 bottle of wine. Dessert for 2. I stood in that closet for a long time, holding that piece of paper. After that, I stopped doubting myself. And I started paying attention the way I pay attention when I'm building a legal case. Quietly, systematically, without tipping my hand. Over the next several weeks, the picture came into focus. Charges on our joint credit card for a hotel 40 minutes outside the city. An unfamiliar name, Camille, saved in his phone under the label Work, PR Team. Text previews I caught on accident that had absolutely nothing to do with work. I had my answer. I just didn't have my plan yet. I spent about 2 months preparing. I consulted a divorce attorney, a colleague I trusted, someone completely outside Marcus's social circle. I gathered financial records. I documented everything carefully and quietly. I made sure I understood exactly where I stood legally before I made a single move. And then one Thursday afternoon, I wrapped up a client meeting early and drove home. I wasn't expecting anything unusual. I just wanted to change clothes and take a quiet evening for myself. I was inside the house, upstairs, when I heard tires on the driveway. I looked out the bedroom window. Marcus's car. I started to feel that familiar mix of tired and relieved. At least he was home for once. And then the passenger door opened. A woman stepped out. She was put together, early 30s, looking around at the house with this expression I will never forget. It was the expression of someone seeing a place they've been told stories about. Curious. Proprietary. Like she was taking mental inventory. Marcus said something to her, and she laughed. He put his hand on the small of her back. And they walked toward my front door together. I want to tell you I felt devastated. And somewhere underneath everything, maybe I did. But what I remember most clearly is that I felt very, very calm. I walked downstairs. I sat down on the living room sofa. And I waited. The door opened. Marcus stepped inside mid-sentence, talking to her about something, completely comfortable, completely at home. And then he looked up and saw me sitting there. The sentence died in his mouth. She walked in behind him and stopped when she noticed the look on his face. The 3 of us held that silence for a moment. Then she looked at me and said with genuine confusion, "Oh, I didn't know anyone was going to be here." And Marcus, to his credit as a salesman, tried to recover. "Vivienne, hey, you're home early. This is Camille, we were just." "You don't need to explain who she is," I said. Camille looked between the 2 of us. "Wait," she said slowly. "Who is she?" "I'm his wife," I said. "And this is my house." The emphasis I put on those last 2 words was deliberate. Camille turned to Marcus. "You said she moved out." Marcus opened his mouth. Nothing came out. "You said the 2 of you had been separated for almost a year," she continued, her voice shifting, getting harder. "You said the house was yours." I stood up and walked to the dining room, where I had left a folder on the table that morning. I don't know if some part of me had anticipated something like this, or if I had just been carrying that folder around out of habit. Either way, there it was. I picked it up, walked back, set it on the coffee table in front of her. "The deed," I said. "The mortgage, title insurance, every document associated with this property." She picked it up, opened it, read it. Her jaw tightened. She closed the folder and looked at Marcus with an expression that could have stripped paint off the walls. "You lied to me." "He tried. He actually tried. It's complicated." "You brought me to your wife's house," she said, cutting him off. Her voice was quiet now, which was somehow worse. "You told me it was yours. You told me she was out of the picture." She set the folder down carefully. "What else did you lie about?" He had no answer. And honestly, neither of them needed me anymore. Whatever they had was already over in that room. I walked to the front door and opened it. "Camille," I said. "I'm sorry you got caught up in this. You're welcome to leave." She didn't hesitate. She picked up her bag, looked at Marcus one last time with complete contempt, and walked out the door without another word. I closed it behind her. Marcus stood in the middle of the living room looking like a man who had just watched his entire card house collapse from a single breath. "Vivienne." "Don't," I said. Not harshly. Just firmly. He rubbed the back of his neck. You planned this. I planned a lot of things, I said. I've had some time. He looked around the room. The furniture we had picked out together, the photos still on the walls, the house he had lived in for 6 years. And for the first time in a long time, I think he actually saw it clearly. Saw that his name was nowhere on any of it. I filed for divorce 11 days ago, I said. The papers are on the kitchen counter. And because this house is solely in my name, the attorney has already begun the process to formalize that. He stared at me. You're serious? I've been serious for 2 months, I said. You just weren't paying attention. I handed him a separate envelope. He opened it. Inside was a formal notice, drafted by my attorney, outlining his right to remain in the property during the legal process, the timeline, and what came next. Marcus stood in his own home. Except it had never been his home, not legally, not on paper, and for the first time in our marriage, he had absolutely nothing to say. The charm was gone. The confidence was gone. He just looked small. The divorce was finalized 7 months later. Because the house was in my name and had been purchased entirely with my premarital and personal finances, it was not considered marital property subject to division. My attorney had built an airtight case, and frankly, Marcus's own behavior during the marriage didn't give him much of a foundation to stand on. He moved into an apartment not far from his office. We don't speak. I hear through mutual friends that things with Camille ended that same night, which surprised absolutely no one. As for me, I repainted the living room a deep, warm terracotta. I had the back patio redesigned into a proper outdoor sitting area with string lights and a built-in grill. I turned the spare bedroom into the reading room I always wanted and never made time for. I still live in Charlotte. I still practice property law. And I am, for the first time in years, completely and entirely at peace. Here is what I want you to take away from this. Protecting yourself is not cynical. It is not unromantic. It is not a sign that you don't trust someone. It is a sign that you are wise enough to know that love and legal protection are not the same thing, and that you should never confuse one for the other. I loved Marcus. For a long time, I genuinely loved him. But I also bought that house in my name. And when everything fell apart, that decision protected me completely. He walked into that house thinking he had gotten away with everything. He didn't realize he had just walked into the one place in the world where he had absolutely no power. Now before you go, I want to ask you something, and I want you to be honest in the comments. If you had been in my position, if you had seen your spouse walk through the door with someone else, what would you have done in that moment? Would you have confronted them immediately? Or would you have done what I did? Stayed quiet and let it unfold? And here's the bigger question. Do you think it matters that the house was in my name? Would this story have ended differently if it wasn't? Tell me what you think. Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe, leave a like, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. I'll see you in the next one.